Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This presentation is about competency management in organizations, what it's about, and why we should be looking at this. In preparation for this workshop, we ask you to please read an article by Edward E. Lawler, published in Harvard Business Review, titled From Job-Based to Competency-Based Organizations. If you haven't yet read it, please read it before we carry on with this presentation, because it provides such good foundational information. And it was written in the early 1990s. So this is not a new concept, even though we are struggling to really come to terms with what it is and how to use it in organizations. So moving on, assuming that you will have read it, I would like to start by asking a few questions about that article. Was anyone confused by it? What about this concept did you find confusing? Did anyone have a light bulb moment? Aha, is this what it's about? What particularly sparked your interest? Who thinks it's a load of hogwash, and why do you think that? Who noticed the date of the article? Did that impact your thinking about the article at all? And why do you think we wanted you to read the article? You can ponder that, but remember the principles as we go through the workshop. Then, I would like you to please write down on a piece of paper the percentage of your budget that is people related. That is the percentage of your total budget that is attributable to people. And remember, outsourcing is a people cost. I expect an answer of between 40% and 70%, sometimes more, depending on the type of business. Now ask yourself the following question. Is there more that I, as a manager, can be doing to improve the return that we get on this investment in people? We're going to start with why competency management. If we start with what, you could spend the best part of the presentation thinking, so what? How is this going to impact us? How is this going to impact our organization? Why does it matter? So we choose to show you the why first. Then we'll talk about what competency management is about and how to go about implementing competency management in your organization. So in the whys, we start off with all the research. All research, not just the two mentioned on the next slide and this particular one. All research in the field of effective human capital management shows that there is a strong correlation between improving people processes in the organization and the top and bottom line performance of the organization. In fact, this study, done of the Standard & Poor's 500 companies between 1995 and 2009, shows the real impact and why it's important for management today. From this graph, you will see that in 1975, of the total market value of these S&P 500 organizations, 83% of that value was attributable to tangible assets, and just 17% was attributable to intangible assets, like brand and intellectual property. By 2009, this has turned around completely. In 2009, just 19% of the value of these organizations is attributable to tangible assets, and a full 81% is now attributable to intangible assets. The intellectual property of organizations is now its workforce, the people of the organization. Whereas tangible assets are pretty much well managed, mostly because it's easy to measure in financial terms. Intangible assets are not that well managed at this stage. If people costs constitute up to 70% of total costs, and people value constitutes up to 81% of the organization's market value, surely this has to become too important to leave to non-line management. Surely executive and line management need to learn more about how to manage this aspect of their business a lot better. There are many more research papers that show the value of improving human capital management. We have selected just these two for now. Watson Wyatt have an index that they call the HCI, the Human Capital Index. When applied as a research tool in organizations, they found that an organization with a low human capital index generally has about a 21% total return to shareholders. An organization with a medium HCI has on average a 39% total return to shareholders, whereas an organization with a high HCI has a 64% return on investment. They also show that there is a strong link between the level of the human capital index and sustainable financial performance of the organization. This means that if the organization has a high HCI, it is a predictor of strong financial performance in the future. A strong financial performance today, however, is not a good predictor of financial performance in the future. So, strong HCI is a good lead indicator of organizational performance. This study, incidentally, was conducted over a 5-year period, so it's not a flash in the pan. The founders of the Employment Equity Survey, Gallup, in the late 1990s, they found that there were between 5 and 7 key drivers of business performance related to people in the organization. This they call employee engagement, which is defined as the level of commitment that the employee has to the success of the organization. This is not a feel-good. This is hardcore top and bottom line impact. They found that engaged employees produce 38% higher customer satisfaction, are 22% more productive, and are 27% more profitable. Is that not what any and all organizations would like to achieve? Is it not what you would like to achieve for your organization? Did you know? This slide is here because of the key drivers of employee engagement and hence organizational performance is the employee's alignment with organizational strategy. Research done by Palladium Balanced Scorecard Collaborative showed that 95% of the workforce does not understand the strategy of their organization. 95%. 70% of middle managers do not have incentive compensation linked to business strategy. 70%. 67% of IT and HR organizations are not aligned with the organization's strategy. How do you match up on this? Do you know? This is commonly known as the Sears employee customer profit chain, and it is well publicized. You can find it on the internet. The vision of Sears is to be a compelling place to work, addressing the needs of employees, a compelling place to shop, addressing the needs of customers, a compelling place to invest, addressing the needs of the investor community. What they found through research and business analytics is the employees' attitudes about the job and their attitude about the organization impact on both employee behavior and employee retention, so an immediate cost saving. The employee's behavior has an impact on both the service level and helpfulness shown to customers and the value that customers place on the merchandise offered by the organization. The level of service and helpfulness, as well as the value placed on the merchandise, impacts on customer impression. Customer impression drives both customer retention and increase in traffic through customer recommendations. Increased customer retention and traffic impacts on return on investment, operating profit and revenue growth. And through analysis and business analytics, they found a 5-unit increase in employee attitude drives a 1.3-unit increase in customer impressions, which drives a 0.5% increase in revenue growth. So, this is the way that Sears now manage their stores. They have a specialist team, kind of SWAT team, that when the store is not performing to the required standard, the team evaluates and analyzes customer retention, customer impression, level of service, value of merchandise, employee behaviors, employee retention, employee attitude about the company, and employee attitude about the job. They identify the problem areas, and interventions are put in place to correct the problem and bring the store back on track. Obviously, the IT department is not the only department involved in the success of an organization. However, what are the drivers within IT that drive return on assets, operating margin, revenue growth, customer impression, customer retention, level of service and helpfulness, merchandise value, employee behavior, employee retention, employee attitude about the company, employee attitude about the job? But this is Sears' vision, and it's Sears' model. What about your organization? Could you create a model like this for your organization? The answer is yes, you can. Sometimes in management we ask the wrong questions. For example, headcount. So many organizations worry about headcount. This is a superfluous question without first asking which employees by job and by name are contributing the most to the organization. When worrying about headcount, worry first that when you cut headcount or you cap headcount, you have identified those that are contributing the most to the organization and ensure that they remain in the organization. The strategic questions that management should be asking are these. Have our IT human assets increased in value this year over last year? Has the quality of IT leadership increased in value this year over last year? Which IT and IT HR programs and activities created measurable value to customers and shareholders over the past year? Which IT programs and activities delivered the expected results? A big problem with these questions is that we need figures against which to measure and monitor. We need to establish the key metrics that will inform us for these strategic human capital decisions. One of the most simple tools to use to start the process is the Organisational Capability chart. People are measured in terms of two aspects. One, performance. Two, capability or competence. But for this to work and provide the input needed, the metrics need to be defined. How is performance to be measured? What does excellent performance look like? What does poor performance look like? How do we measure these? What competencies are core to performance? What does excellent capability look like? What does poor capability look like? How do we measure capability? Once you have these in place, it's not difficult to map current organizational capability and to put organizational capability goals in place for the following year and map achievements through the year. We go through this in more detail in a workshop specifically dedicated to that. Keep an eye out for that. Most people in IT know of the CMMI because of their software engineering capability maturity model. Not all organizations actually become accredited by CMMI, but many organizations follow the CMMI processes to some level. CMMI have now also created a human capital maturity model. They call it the PCMM, as depicted here. Level 1, which isn't even on their chart, is unplanned and uncoordinated HR practices with possible islands of excellence scattered through the organization. Think of your organization as we go through this. See if you can pinpoint, just through these brief questions, where your organization is. Level 2 requires line management, facilitated by HR, to take responsibility for managing and developing their people. In other words, to answer the questions in the previous 2 slides. Level 3 moves HR practices to become more competency-based. People are viewed as a collection of competencies, not a job. And improving those competencies in line with organizational goals and strategy is the focus of line management facilitated by HR. Level 4 builds on the definitions of Level 3 towards more quantitative performance management, and Level 5 builds again towards continuous capability improvement, not just for the sake of improvement, but for organizational performance alignment. Most organizations today are at best trying to establish themselves at Level 2 and starting to look towards Level 3, but many are still at Level 1. Many line managers today still abdicate their people responsibility to HR. In the actual workshop, we look more closely at the current level of organization that needs to be improved and how to move to the next level. Read through these benefits of competency management. I'll give you a minute or so. They're all achievable and desirable. But the key factor for competency management is the ability of the organization to put standards, measures, and metrics in place in order to plan and build the competencies needed to achieve organizational goals. So, what is it? What is it about? What is competency management? And the first question is, what do we mean by competence? Competence, sadly, means different things to different people, and is often used in employee recruitment terms without giving due consideration to the actual meaning. It has to become more of an adjective than a noun. For the purpose of the workshop, we define competency as being a cluster of knowledge, skills, and attitudes that affects part of a job, correlates with performance, can be measured against acceptance or acceptable standards, can be improved with development, and differentiates one company from another. This last statement is the most interesting. How can competency differentiate a company from its competitors? To know this, one would need to know more about how the organization's competition create and use competence. We also need to know and understand what core competencies are for our organization and the competition. This is linked closely to the organization's mission, value, and culture. We define competencies in 3 areas: functional or technical competencies, those needed for a specific job. For example, programming skills for a programmer. Professional business competencies, those needed to apply the functional competencies within an environment. So, for example, carrying on with the program example, an idea of what business processes are. Life skill or behavioral competencies, the key underpinning competencies needed to be able to operate in the job function. And there, an example would be analytical thinking. What is competency management? Competency management is a strategy that ensures that the right competencies are available in the right numbers at the right time to enable the organization to achieve its strategic goals. How is strategy different from a plan? A strategy is a blueprint. It's a design or idea used to accomplish a specific goal. A strategy may be flexible and open for adaptation and change when needed. A strategy looks at where we want to be, where we are now, and provides route map to take us from now into the future. A plan is the concretization of strategy. A plan is a program or a scheme for a definite purpose. It is concrete and does not allow for deviation. If plan A does not work, you do not alter plan A and try again. You move rather to plan B, something different. Strategy sets the goals and time frame based on knowledge and research, and plan sets out how this will be achieved. Competency management, as a strategy, identifies the competencies needed by the organization to achieve its goals, how many are needed, and how available are these to the organization. Strategy identifies problem areas such as skill shortages and identifies what needs to be achieved and the time frame in which it needs to be achieved. Competency management plans follow on and provide the concrete activities that the organization will take to achieve the strategy. Plan A: source scarce skills from a foreign country. Plan B: grow scarce skills within the organization. Each plan has its own route map and its own measures of success. This quote comes from the pre-reading article From Job-Based to Competency-Based Organizations by Edward E. Lawler. The question to ask here is, how competent is your organization to deliver on its promises, its strategy and goals? And could you be doing better? Do you know? There are a number of changes that are occurring naturally in the environment of business today. They impact the nature of work, global competition, organizational change, organization structure, and management. We will look at each of these separately. In nature of work, we are moving from the efficacy of the structure of the organization to the ability to identify and develop key competencies that drive business performance. We're moving from individuals delivering standard outcomes to flexible teams that form and dissolve for specific projects or tasks. We're moving from value of individuals being defined by their ability to fit into the structure to the value of individuals being defined by the knowledge and competencies that they possess. We're moving from filling jobs with appropriately skilled individuals in order to create business success to understanding and building the core and key competencies that will drive business performance. We're moving from the mass production economy to the information age and a global economy. In terms of global competition, we're moving from price, availability and standards as the basis of competition to speed to market and speed to respond to customers as the basis of competition. We have only to look at the internet and the speed of adoption of social networking to know that this is true. We're moving from predictable and stable local markets to less predictable and unstable global markets. We're moving from large bureaucratic organizations to flattened, lean organizations. We're moving from a large number of individuals doing the same work to critical knowledge and skills of individuals that impact on organizational performance. We're moving from individuals selected to fill specific jobs to individuals selected for their ability to fit the culture and to change and continually learn new skills. From an organizational change perspective, we are moving from a stable organizational environment to rapid kaleidoscopic changes in the environment. We have only to remember the recent global economic crisis to fully understand this. We are moving from a static job-based structure to constantly changing structures to meet the changing needs of business. We're moving from relatively permanent individuals and jobs to jobs and individuals changing rapidly and frequently. Average employee tenure in one position today is estimated to be just 1.5 years. That hardly gives the organization a reasonable period of payback on their investment in that individual. We're moving from the worth of the individual being their ability to do a specific job to the worth of the individual being their ability to change and learn new skills quickly and their ability to work in new and different ways. We're moving to individuals being paid according to the worth of the job, to individuals being paid according to the value that they add to the organization. The recent global IT skill shortage has brought this vividly to mind. From an organizational structure perspective, we're moving from fairly static functional organization structures to flexible and reconfigurable organization structures in order to meet market needs. We're moving from very hierarchical structures to flatter structures and distributed decision making. We're moving from a strong control hierarchy to self-managing teams. We're moving from well-defined sets of job tasks to be performed by individuals to individuals defining the best way to achieve their goals because they understand the business and the strategy being executed. We're moving from hierarchical careers and responsibilities to lateral development by doing a greater variety of things. We're moving from jobs being the basis for managing individuals and organization behavior to creating competitive advantage through managing competencies required by the organization to create organizational capability. We're moving from pay systems based on jobs to pay systems based on deliverables. We're moving from individuals playing structured and defined roles to individuals expected to make unique contribution and add value to products and services. We are moving from ad hoc training and development to continual lifelong learning. We are moving from employee underutilization to employee optimization. And how does all of this impact on management? Well, we're moving from control focus to a leadership focus. Many old-style managers struggle with this concept. We're moving from defined jobs to flexible work. We're moving from management of people to management of output, another concept that is hard to swallow for some managers still today. We're moving from centralized decision-making to distributed decision-making, putting the decisions closer to the experience and the expertise. We're moving from individuals being throwaway resources, retrenchments, etc., to individuals being economic resources that contribute to organizational performance. So what do competency-based organizations look like compared with traditional job-based organizations? They tend to be more customer-focused and are more flexible in the design of their structures, with cross-functional teams and lateral cooperation and processes. The basic work unit is the team, with individuals being the building blocks for successful self-managing teams. Role descriptions are flexible, but competencies need to be well defined, with team skills profiles forming the basis for putting together the team and developing team members. The deployment of individuals is flexible and dependent on the competencies required by the team and the competencies of the individual. Core for the success of individuals in this type of organization is ability. Selection is based more on fit to the organization than fit to a job. Employees are selected for organizational membership and the specific competencies that they need to bring to the organization. Remuneration is based on contribution and the level of multi-skilling that an employee possesses, as this dictates the variety of teams to which the individual may be assigned. The challenge for this area is the definition and valuing of competencies. Pay is variable and based on milestones and individual and team performance criteria. The challenge for effective performance-based pay is the existence and measurement of applicable metrics. So the key challenges that exist to organizations wanting to move towards becoming a competency-based organization, level 3 on the Human Capital Capability Maturity Model are: the ability to uniquely define competencies for specific areas, an in-depth understanding of corporate strategy and related goals and broad tasks, the ability to measure the importance in elements of productivity, profitability, and return on investment, the ability to establish projects and/or portfolios to achieve the strategy, the ability to translate deliverables into competencies and performance standards, the ability to size competency requirements, how many competencies are needed for a role and which are core to the role, the ability to locate or develop competencies, systems that assist in managing the competency information. At Talent Align, we recognize these challenges and have produced a comprehensive evidence-based competency framework specifically for the IT environment. This greatly reduces both the time and the cost factors of implementing competency management in your organization. And now we move on to the how-to of competency management. Burson and associates, through research, identified the top key people-oriented drivers of business performance. In order of effectiveness, these are: number 1, coaching; number 2, a competency-based approach to workforce planning; number 3, relevant competency management; number 4, performance management, focused on goal setting and development, not appraisal; number 5, sourcing and recruiting as a strategic function; number 6, human capital systems that provide good people-related business intelligence. The essence of the Talent Align website is to provide relevant and up-to-date information to help organizations to define the roles and competencies needed for effective organizational performance. There is a database of information to create over 400 unique IT jobs for approximately 3 levels for each job position. For example, trainee, programmer, senior programmer. There is a database of competencies defined in 90 competency areas and across 4 levels of competence. In total, there are more than 1,000 unique, evidence-based competency definitions. These can be applied to a number of national qualifications frameworks used internationally and incorporate information from key international bodies of knowledge. Human capital management is not one specific area, but consists of a number of different areas in the different phases of the employee life cycle. The goal of human capital management is to translate business goals on the left into business performance on the right through optimized human capital management in the center. Optimized human capital management is achieved when each area has been effectively and repetitively applied. But fundamental and foundation to the ability to achieve this is the existence of a well-defined organization incorporating the concept of reconfigurable organization, well-defined job descriptions incorporating the concept of flexible job descriptions, and a competency framework that defines the competencies required to function and deliver organizational performance. Our mantra at Talent Align is, human capital management is a journey, not a destination. It's a strategy, not a plan, and it's a process. The starting point for human capital management can be any one or two, seldom more, points on the human capital management spectrum that we saw on the previous slide. Generally, however, the current focus of organizations is around performance management, goal and metric-based, succession planning, and remuneration. From an implementation point of view, it's not important what the starting point is. It's only important that there is a starting point based on the human capital management spectrum, so that the process starts with defining the problem and defining the goal and measures of success required for the process or project. Once these have been established, a career development roadmap is defined. This is a diagrammatic look at different roles and levels in the organization and defines how employees can develop and grow in the organization. This is used initially as the basis for defining job and competency profiles, and thereafter it's used for career management and virtually every other element of the human capital management spectrum. From the career development roadmap, a competency matrix is designed that defines how competencies are developed and grown through the defined jobs and through the levels of the organization. This is essential for defining the job and competency profiles, but it is also really important for planning training and development and for identifying which roles have the core competencies needed in the organization. A job description and competency profile is produced for each role of the career development roadmap and using the competency matrix. Finally, competency assessments and development programs are developed for each job and competency profile. The competency assessments can include online technology assessments, psychometric assessments, behavioral assessments, 360 assessments. What is the difference between a competency dictionary and a competency framework? A competency dictionary is a dictionary of competencies that exist within an organization. There may be a competency dictionary for different competency areas of an organization. For instance, General Management Competency Dictionary, IT Competency Dictionary. Competency Dictionary will generally differentiate between levels, 3, 4, or 5 levels, and provides a general statement or definition of what the competency entails. Competency framework, on the other hand, will have the same general aspects as a competency dictionary. However, a competency framework will include at least a definition of evidence of performance, of competence. A competency dictionary is therefore more open to individual interpretation than a competency framework is. The example on this slide is the example of a talent-aligned competency framework for the competency area project management. This is not complete, but just gives you a perspective. The different levels of competence can be seen, as well as the objective evidence of competence stated in outcomes terms. So the competency stated on the left, the level in the center, and our framework is a 4-level framework, and the evidence of competence in the right-hand column. How do you get there? A typical competency management roadmap looks like this. By far, the highest cost and the most time is in the competency definition phase. This could well be as much as 2/3 of the total project in terms of both time and cost. Defining the job standards is also a cost, but the cost is lower and it takes less time than the competency definition phase. It is only after this has been done that the return on investment can be reaped. This is achieved through both the creation of an inventory of skills contained in the organization and a needs analysis to identify the skills and competencies required to achieve organizational strategy and performance. With Talent Align, organizations can virtually jump directly to phase 3 and start seeing return on investment in the shortest possible time. These are some questions for you to ponder on. If you don't have the answers to these questions off pat, then you really need to look at implementing competency management in your organization. And finally, back to the question, what percentage of your budget is people related? If it's between 40 and 70%, then surely you should be spending an equivalent proportion of time and investment to ensure that you get optimized human capital management. It's going to take time and it's going to take commitment. But all research shows that the rewards in terms of business performance are very, very good. At Talent Align, we consider ourselves to be a bridge between IT and HR. We are IT people by background and have in-depth knowledge and understanding of the IT environment and the challenges and benefits of IT. And we have a good understanding of what it takes to drive IT organizational performance through people. Starting with our flagship online services, your repository to create, store, manage, and maintain your IT job descriptions. To help you, there are over 400 IT job descriptions that can be customized for your requirement and a competency framework of over 1,000 competencies relevant to IT. Our consultants work on the basis of helping you to identify through surveys and metrics where possible areas for improvement exist and help to put projects in place to achieve the improvement. We distribute and support the HCMI range of workforce business intelligence products and services in South Africa. HCMI are the global leaders in workforce analytics and are driving the standards for workforce reporting on a global basis. If you're looking to implement competency management for your IT staff, talk to us first.